Welcome to Being Intrepid, where each conversation is a front row seat to how bold leaders are reimagining learning to meet the moment and shape what's next. I'm your host, Sam Herring. For the past 25 years, I've been building and leading learning companies to help people grow and organizations thrive. Today, I'm joined by Tal Goldhamer, founder and CEO of Find The Tailwind, a strategic consultancy that helps organizations and people improve. Now, a key offering that Tall's firm provides is AI education to help people understand and use AI in a really practical sense. Now, Tall is also the former partner and chief learning officer at EY, which is the global professional services firm that I'm sure you're all familiar with. It provides tax, audit, assurance, and consulting services. Tall led learning and development for all firm employees in the Americas for almost a decade. Now, Tal and I have known each other for several years, and I've had the pleasure of supporting Tal as a client during that time. And I've also really enjoyed the wide-ranging conversations that Tal and I have had over the years. So this feels like just a natural next step in one of many conversations we've had. So Tal, welcome to Being Intrepid.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Really happy to be here. And I just have to comment the term being intrepid. I think there's never been a time where we have to be more intrepid, right? Bold and courageous and fearless. There's a lot of change happening. There always is a lot of change, but this one is big, and this wave is big. So it is incumbent on all of us to be intrepid in everything we do.
Love that. Thank you, Tal. It is so true. So, Tal, you've built a rich career at EY as an assurance partner for sure, but also consulting and leading a variety of strategic initiatives and building up really deep skills in transformation, innovation, operational excellence, and others. Can you share a bit about your career journey and, in particular, how you developed this interest as an assurance advisor in learning and development and eventually found your way to leading firm-wide learning?
Yeah, well, it all comes down to my first few years in the workplace. I got fascinated by efficiency. Actually, it was inefficiency that I was really infatuated. Like I couldn't help but watch two teams sitting essentially side by side with each other that essentially came from the same source, from the same types of schools, got the same type of training. And one team was performing well and one team was performing less well, let's call it.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
and and so I was curious, like what was going on here. So as a young, newly minted, professional in the world, I said, you know what? Yes, I have my work to do, but I have a little side project to figure out what's going on here. And that led me to really dig into the behavioral science around why
mm,
people build skills, why they're motivated or not motivated to learn, or maybe you've got a class that looks great and everyone loves, but like it's not actually having the effect. So all those things that you mentioned, transformation and innovation and operational excellence, were all born from this
mm.
desire to want to help people get better. That's really what I love to do. There's not a day that I come home if I help somebody or some people get better, I feel really good. I love to help people get better so that they can thrive and in turn make things better for others. So this ripple effect of helping people. So, that naturally led me to learning and development. So I served clients for most of my career.
Mhm.
Um, and I did all this other transformation, innovation, operational excellence type work. It was all to help people get better, which I guess naturally led me to this role of looking after learning and development for a very large number of people, to help them all be better at the things that they needed to do and they wanted to do.
So I remember, Tal, about a year ago, we were sitting in a hotel lobby in San Diego and talking about like what's next for Tal. And it was fascinating because I know you were doing some work within the firm to help partners understand AI, understand practical use cases, upskilling partners and senior leaders. Dirty little secret, partners, and they need to be upskilled too, right?
They do.
maybe,
They do.
maybe more than most.
Yeah,
so,
maybe.
so, what led you to found your firm, Find the Tailwind, and focus on AI upskilling as your next act? And to tell us a little bit about this journey.
Yeah, well, yeah, you always have a great memory, Sam. And I do remember sitting there having tea in the lobby of that hotel where we met. Um, the I'd been I'd been at EY for 3 decades, and over 3 decades, incredible career with incredible people doing incredible things. And the last few years, as you point out, as AI became a topic that we all needed to get upskilled at quickly,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was designing and delivering AI academies to our partners around the world. And last year, I retired from EY, and I've been so energized by the impact that we were having that I said I'm going to create a firm where I can continue doing this kind of work. And it goes back to what I said earlier, which is I love to make things better for others that they can thrive and in turn make things better for others. And I'm sure we'll
Hmm.
get into the conversation around AI. AI is one of those technologies. It's one of those things that comes around very, very rarely in our lifetimes. You know, maybe
Hmm.
one, two,
Hmm.
maybe three of these things show up in each of our lifetimes in the span of a lifetime,
Hmm.
and it has the potential to do so much good for so many people. And it certainly has the potential to disrupt a lot of things as well, but to help so many people become better. So it appealed to me. I don't just do that. I do also leadership development and
Hmm.
other things. But the AI Academy work is really, and the AI education work is really what really excites me. And we call the firm Find the Tailwind because we all get headwinds in our lives. And
Mm.
our role, we believe, is to help you find the tailwind to help push you further, faster, so you can get to your destination with that much more efficiency. Coming back to the conversation about efficiency, and help more people and have an impact on more people.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I love the name of your firm. I'm not a sailor myself, but I'm sure there's applications there. I was a rower in college, and I
Ah,
do remember rowing into a headwind was not fun.
that's
So,
exactly it. And when you had a tailwind, and when you had the wind at the wind at your sails and pushing you further, faster, whether you're a plane or a boat or whatever it is, or just a human,
yeah,
we could all use a tailwind every once in a while, and we could all use help working through headwinds. And so that's what we do.
absolutely love it. So I was thinking about this, Tal, with the AI boom, and I was very recently down at ServiceNow's customer conference, and their CEO Bill McDermott was up on stage. They're all in on as an AI enabler.
Yeah.
And his number was quite astonishing when he talked about the economic impact of AI in 5 years, 2030. His number was $22 trillion global economic impact. So you think about every business leader wants a little slice of that pie, right? They want to be part of that opportunity. So what I'm wondering is, as a chief learning officer advising the CEO, how do you design a strategy to upskill your workforce that allows your business to realize that value, that business value that could come from AI and that transformation that needs to happen? So just give us a sense strategically. How do you go about that? If you're advising that chief learning officer, what do you say to them?
Yeah, I look, any number that starts with that has a T in it, trillion, like you gets your attention, right? So certainly the impact is massive. I think if we think back to blue collar work a number of years ago, robotics was the thing that was going to displace, and now you've got AI, which has the potential to displace or change a lot of white collar work and blue collar work. We forget that
Mhm. Mhm.
if a robot that just has an arm that moves things or installs things is still a robot, but a robot that can move around autonomously in a factory or in a warehouse, because of AI and because of the incredible progress that's being made, AI-driven progress with robotics, that has the potential to change just about everything for everyone. So
Mhm.
how do you advise a CLO? Well, I guess it depends on what we're talking about here. I think if we're talking about how do we get our workforce to be thinking about potential and opportunities of where AI could change the way we do things, could change the way we serve our customers, could
Mhm.
change the products that it could also impact us, change the way our products are consumed by the market and by customers. I think at the core of it is by the time we're recording this episode, and by the time it's published, in a very short amount of time, AI will have been different, right? So there's no such thing as like learning Excel and then you'll still using Excel a few months later.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a new function every once in a while. AI will dramatically continue to improve.
Mhm.
So what do we need to do? We need to understand AI first of all. I think many people I speak to in many companies, they don't even understand what AI is. They have stories that they can tell about how they saw AI do something. They may be using one of the LLMs, one of the chatbots, to do something a little bit differently or a little bit better, but they don't really even understand what it is. And there's a lot of ways to, we can get a little bit deep in this thing at some point, but there's a lot of different, understanding AI. It's like, if I said to you, you need to understand computers, you would say to me, like, what do you mean? And say, well,
Hmm.
you need to understand computers. We use the term AI like that, right? We use the term AI like
Yep.
that. So understanding what it is, and I'll give you a little bit of an example of
Yeah.
this because I think it does speak to how CLOs and chief learning officers and anybody who's in learning development should be thinking about educating their workforce. There is AI that is enterprise type AI, where you're hiring data scientists to you know, uh, build scripts and algorithms to apply to data that help you do things better internally or help you
Yep.
serve your customers, whatever it is. So there's enterprise level AI. Then we've got AI packages that we can buy, right? So
Yep.
ServiceNow is selling packages.
Yep.
Lot of companies, SAP and Oracle and Salesforce. They're all things which have AI embedded in it. And then we have sort of the wide applicability tools, the stuff that we all have access to that is not really specialized. It's licensed and we can use it, right? So just understanding there's a difference between those three things or among those three things is a good place to start in terms of what that could mean for us in our business, right?
Yep.
I don't know that we need to go into and train everybody on really understanding how neural networks work and how diffusion models work and how all the
Hmm.
technical elements of it, but a general level business understanding of what AI is, I
Yep.
find is the foundational place to start because then people don't feel as lost and intimidated by it. It
Hmm.
allows them to start thinking about, all right, well, what is the possibility, right? Instead of just saying, hey, you can use AI for that, which is like saying you can use a computer for that. You have a little bit more of a framing of the different types of the different ways that AI could show up in a business context, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And so I think you've hit a nice outline of kind of the what. How about talk a little bit about the how? You've been leading workshops, academies, delivering experiences. What have you learned over the last couple of years, both at EY and with other audiences now in your own firm? What do you find is effective in terms of that learning experience with AI? Is there anything different, or is it, hey,
Yeah.
we know learning design's learning design.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the thing that I've learned is that if you dive too quickly into what AI is,
Yep.
you wind up losing a lot of people. And I've seen and I've sat through enough AI
Mm.
presentations where the first 5 minutes sort of are interesting and fun because there's some fun party trick type example of AI on a screen, and then it dives very quickly into a very technical conversation and loses
Yep.
a lot of people. So what I found is, going back to what we were just talking about, some very fundamental plain language. The barometer
Hmm.
that I use for things like this is my mother's about 81 years old. Like, will she understand what we're talking about here? And it doesn't mean she has to understand everything, but are we talking in a language that enables somebody who is very non-technical, and I assure you she is non-technical,
Right.
very non-technical, would she understand it? The other piece that I find that is very often overlooked is the mindset that you need when approaching AI. It is not like any other software. It's not like any other tool because literally we call it AI and we forget that the I stands for intelligence. So this is a form of intelligence. Software is very deterministic, right? You put
Hmm.
something into a piece of software, if you put the right thing in, you know what you should be getting out of it. AI has a bit of unpredictability associated
Yep.
with it
Yep.
because it's a form of intelligence and it's probabilistic. It's not deterministic, and because of that, understanding how we should be thinking about AI is a completely different mindset than how we're thinking about just about every other piece of software or technology that we've ever implemented. So I find those two things are the best place to start rather than diving into let me show you some prompts in an LLM, or let me just go deep on what the technology is because we think that people need to understand the nuts and bolts of it.
Yep. Love that you brought up the deterministic versus probabilistic. I mean, this is just to roll back the hood a little bit as a software company at Vital Source and on the Intrepid team. When we talk about testing, going into QA with new AI features,
Hmm.
this is the big thing is like it's
Yeah.
non-deterministic. So your test script is going to be completely different. And, we need to try whole new strategies using AI to test AI and creating personas and so on. So non-deterministic outputs is really a key concept here. So, one of the things that we've talked about, Tal, is, and you've mentioned today, is just how rapidly things are changing. Things will be different from today versus when this episode is posted, like you said. You mentioned in a recent conversation how the prompt engineer was the big new job, 1 to 2
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
They had these unique specialized skills and not so much today because the LLMs have become are just be continue to become so powerful that, fairly pedestrian, unskilled users can, do their prompt and you get pretty good results. So, and you mentioned earlier this mastery is about mindset. Can you unpack that a little bit more? Tell us what you mean by mindset being so critical.
Yeah, well, first, you're absolutely right. As you point out, the models have become so big. They've been trained on such a large body of knowledge and data that they are so big that it is pretty easy. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but pretty easy to put in a mediocre prompt and still get what you need. I mean, I can't
Hmm.
tell you how many times I put in prompts where I say to my, I like after I hit enter, while it's thinking, I'm reading my own prompt. I'm like, oh my God, like what did like that was clunky. I had spelling errors in there. I don't know that it understands, and it basically figures it out in some way. I don't fully understand how, and I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time with this, but it does a pretty good job. So you're absolutely right. This role of the prompt engineer that we were all seeing, job postings for lots of money at some point when it's that is no longer and by the way, that caused a lot of fear in a lot of people because
Hmm.
a lot of people stepped back and said, "Oh, you really need to know how to prompt correctly to use it correctly," and that is really not the case anymore. The thing that is the most important thing right now is giving it a lot of context. So if we're talking about a
Yeah.
chatbot, if we're talking about things like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok or Mistral or Llama, any of these models, and obviously there's many others. Um, the thing is giving it as much context as possible. And that is
Hmm.
really the
Hmm.
secret of being a great prompt engineer.
Hmm.
Some of the, I'll share so you asked about the mindset. The mindset of thinking of AI as a thought partner. And let me share this with you, Sam. Like when I talk about this, when we do our workshops, we use this context of an intern. Imagine you had an intern, and that intern has literally read the internet and more, right? It's literally read the internet and not just read the internet. It has memorized the internet and not just read and memorized the internet, but it's able to make connections across so much of that content in fractions of a second. That is a pretty powerful intern. Now, if that intern was sitting next to you 24 hours a day, right? Whether you're sitting at your desk at your computer or you're lying on a couch, with your smartphone, that intern is with you. Would you use that intern solely to help you write a better email or rewrite a memo or interpret something or write a fun like limerick or something like that? Sure, you might do those things, but think about the opportunity that all of us are not
Yeah.
maximizing if we're using that intern just for those simple tasks. It's really good at those simple tasks, but it's really good at so many other things. So the mindset of flipping from this thing being a piece of software or technology to being a really sophisticated, savvy intern thought partner that you still have to supervise, right? You still have to
Right.
review their work just
Right.
like you wouldn't have an intern. But when you shift your mindset to that kind of thinking around the potential that we all have at our fingertips, and we give it all of the context that is in our mind, so which takes time, by the way, to
Right.
dump all of that stuff out. It does really, really well, and that is a shift that most of us are not accustomed to. Why? Because when we use search engines, we usually just put in a few words and we hit go,
Yep.
right? We don't put
Yep.
in sentences and paragraphs. I often tell people that if you're going to use an LLM, any of these models, for those of you who don't know, LLM is large language model. It's any of these chatbots. If you're going to use one of these things, don't write a 10 or 15 or 20 word prompt. Push yourself to write a 100, 200, or 300 word prompt. The
Nice.
more words, the more context, the better the output is going to be. And that is a mindset shift as well.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking of like the opposite is not true with the search engine. Like it doesn't really get any better.
It
So
doesn't. It very proudly, no matter what you put in there, it very proudly says, "Oh, here are the 5 million results
yeah.
that I've come up with." It doesn't really help you, right? Now there are some search engines. There is progress being made in that space also, which is,
Yeah.
Google and Bing. With Google being by far the predominant search engine and Bing being a second. There are companies like Perplexity
Perplexity. Yep.
and OpenAI, and
Yep.
they're integrating web search into their platforms, which is changing the way people are getting search results. Because yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Tal, if we fast forward a few years, how do you see enterprise learning changing
Mm.
given this tidal wave of AI? And I know you have thoughts on this because we've talked about it.
And I do enjoy talking to you about this kind of stuff because we get into these conversations and back and forth, which is always lovely, Sam. Well, I think if we fast forward a few years, like I don't think that many people will have as much of an appetite for formal learning,
Mhm.
and I think people will always say they want to learn because we are just biologically programmed to get better. And we don't always say it that
Yep.
way and we use those words, but we always want to, none of us want to be bad at things, right? So we always want to be better. I think about what's happening in the businesses that we as learning professionals support. And
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
businesses, whether it's happening quickly in some businesses or slower in other businesses, the businesses are starting to think about and really starting to implement how AI is going to change the way they deliver their products or the way they process the things that they're processing and doing the things that they're. So I think there's going to be less of an appetite for formal learning. Why? Because you're going to have AI doing more of the business process, and it's intelligence, and it's going to do a whole bunch of this stuff um, better already.
Yep.
And it will be guiding humans in some ways rather than the humans guiding the process. And I think that is probably a bit unsettling for many of us to think about
Yep.
because we have grown up. I mean, Sam, you, me, all of our listeners most likely grew up going to schools where we sat in chairs facing front, whether it was blackboards or
Hmm.
whiteboards or smartboards. But we grew up with a model of what learning should be. And then we went to college, if we went to college, and we essentially did something similar. Yes, we had more
Yep.
group projects and things, but there was a wise person in front of us, and they were the source of knowledge, and they were
Hmm.
teaching us. And in a world where that's no longer as needed, it challenges what is our role in an
Yep.
organization. And that's not to say that there's no role for us, but it does cause us it causes other people to question what's our role.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about the skills of the kind of the enduring human skills
Mm.
that professionals will need in a world of where the AI is your intern or your turbocharged intern, what are those human skills that you think that professionals really need to tend to?
Yeah, well, if we build on sort of the previous part of the conversation where there's a lot more AI in the business
Yep.
doing the things that humans previously had done, and
Yep.
therefore you need to train fewer humans, or even if you're training the humans, you have to train them on far fewer type skills because a lot of it is automated and AI is overseeing it and help and doing it. The skills that if we're thinking about sort of the skills that those humans need, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean it's sort of like the it's a small group of human skills, and I don't. And this might annoy some people to hear, but it's not that many skills. It's being curious, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
things, as we talk about, like things change very, very quickly,
Yep.
and I think those people who are just coming in and doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing in the way that they were told to do it are the people who are going to be the first to be replaced.
Yep.
So our job as learning professionals of helping the workforce actually, amplify their curiosity. And I think,
Hmm.
there's a nature versus nurture question around, how much you
Hmm.
can actually get people to be more curious. I think you can. I think
Yes.
you
Yes.
can help people be more curious. And then I would say like, things like adaptability. And, if you're going to be more curious and you find new opportunities to do new things, new ways and differently, things are going to continue to change. Every single organization is going to have significant change, and helping people, human beings, be more adaptable. I think that is something that unfortunately many K through 12 and certainly in
Yeah.
higher ed, there's not
Yeah.
really a focus on that.
Yeah.
And so you might be lucky, and your parents, if you happen to have been grown up in a household where this was part of what you were nurtured with, maybe you're good at it, but most of us are not. Most of us are not. And so I think those are the types of skills. And of course, like working human to human, I think that's building relationships, that kind of stuff. I think those are the skills that
Yeah.
that we all need to develop. Not just the people we're training, but ourselves, like us as learning professionals. These are all, I include us as part of that group of humans.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Tal, let's wrap with your wisdom and advice. So tell us, what's the single most important thing that you would advise learning leaders to prioritize when
No,
it
yeah.
comes to upskilling their workforce in AI?
In AI. Well, I will say something, Sam. I don't know if this will garner me lots of friends. Well, I hope my friends still keep me as friends, and I hope if, for those of you who I'm meeting for the first time here, will know that I'm coming at this from the absolute best place. Look, I think in a world where you have businesses that are evolving rapidly, some quicker than others, but they're all 90 some odd percent of CEOs say that AI is going to have a significant impact on their organization. So whether they are doing that quickly or a little bit slower, that's a fact. So my single biggest piece of advice for learning professionals is get a seat at the table. Why? Because when the business is trying to figure out how do we change this process, improve this process, create this new workflow using technology and AI, you don't want to be on the receiving end
Yeah.
of like, no, we don't need any training for this because AI is doing it. You want to be at the
Yeah.
table, and you want to be advocating, and this is the controversial part. You want to be advocating for how do you build the process with AI so that no learning and development is needed whatsoever, because AI allows for that to be built in. And so what does that mean for learning and development teams of the future? I think they're going to be significantly smaller. But I think in order for us to maintain our relevance in that trajectory, in that time when all of this is happening, we have to take a business focused mindset, and we will gain a lot more kudos and respect if we're at the table, insist on being at the table. And when we're
Yep.
at the table, we're not advocating for, well, I'm going to need to build training on that. I'm going to need to build training on that. Rather, think about the ways that the process could be re-engineered so that no training is needed. In other words, the process operates flawlessly, and contributing to that will get you respect, and you'll continue to get invited back to the table. And then you might have a smaller team in the future, but you'll be able to focus on those real human skills that we talked about earlier, which is where
Right.
we as professionals, learning professionals, shine, and we will continue to shine for eternity, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, and inside a business, that's going to bring so much credibility when you're not trying to build your fiefdom and your kingdom, but you're trying to do the right thing for the business, given what's this technology can do.
That's right. That's right.
So, well, this has been fantastic, Tal. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights and your wisdom, garnered over your career. I'm convinced that our audience is going to walk away with, many nuggets of your wisdom that they can apply, at their organization. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Sam. Always having a conversation with you is always both thought provoking and fun and interesting, and it challenges my thinking as well. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the next one.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Tal, if our listeners want to learn more, how could they best get a hold of you about what you do?
Yeah, I think the best way is probably LinkedIn. You can find me on
Yep.
LinkedIn. You can ping me
Okay.
on LinkedIn. Certainly, that's a good place. You can go to findthetailwind.com. That's our website as well. And we always love to hear from you. And if there's ways that we can help you, let us know. We do love AI education, and love helping people become better so that they can thrive and in turn make things better for others.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. So if you enjoyed today's episode, follow or subscribe to Being Intrepid on Spotify, on Apple, YouTube. You can come to our site and go to our podcast page. And if you have a learning challenge you're wrestling with, drop us a line. We're always open to new ideas for episodes. And until next time, keep asking the hard questions, chart your own course, and keep learning. Thank you.